On today's show, Mavs versus Suns take two. Brendon Kleen from Locked On Suns. I'm Nick Angstadt from Locked On Mavericks. It's a crossover. We're going to talk about the game from the other night, talk about the game coming up tonight, and then why is everyone overlooking the Phoenix Suns as a championship contender? We'll get into all that on today's Locked On Mavs Suns crossover right now.
I'm Luka Doncic, and this is Locked On Mavericks podcast.
The Dallas Mavericks are NBA champions. Bang! Bang! It's good!
And the Mavericks have won the game!
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
And welcome. You are locked on to the Dallas Mavericks and Phoenix Suns. My name is Nick Angstadt, host of the Locked On Mavericks podcast, and joining me, and I'm joining him, it depends on which feed you're listening to this on, Brendon Kleen from Locked On Suns. Brendon, what you got for me?
The NFL guys are lucky. They got this down. We are rookies in the crossover, but I feel honored that I get to use your soundboard on my feed today, so I'm feeling good.
That the Suns are playing the Mavs again, and the Mavs almost got one over on the Suns. So we'll talk about that game, break it all down, and then we'll talk about the championship odds that came out on BetOnline for the Suns that just seemed pretty disrespectful to me.
Completely. I don't know what I mean. We love BetOnline, but I feel pretty insulted by them, frankly. So yeah, we got to get into that.
And it's more so the public, right? It's more the public
Yes,
and that action and all that. So we'll get into all that. This episode is brought to you by McDonald's, proudly serving community since 1965. McDonald's has always been more than just a place to get tasty, affordable food. It's an unofficial community center where you can go and watch Suns game. A big thank you to our friends at McDonald's for always being there. I'm loving it. Thanks for making Locked On Mavs and Locked On Suns your first listen every single day. And remember, Locked On Mavs and Suns are both free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. Both of us up on YouTube right now. Go subscribe to Locked On Suns, Locked On Mavs to get daily episodes in your feed. All right, Brendon, let's get into the game the other night. Let's talk about it a little bit because it seemed like I felt the whole game, the Suns were just sort of like sitting around and hanging around and hanging around and hanging around. And they were playing terribly. And then I was just waiting for a 3-point barrage from the Suns just to come in and just take down the Mavs. I did not expect the Mavs to give it up to them, to give them the 3-point line for that barrage to come with the zone at the end there.
I think Suns fans are probably the same as you in that they knew that would come, but I think that's kind of the playing with the food stuff this year has been disappointing. I think to Suns fans where it's like, well, look, I mean, they didn't have Luka. If Luka played, I would not be so disrespectful. I mean, that was a 9-4 team versus a 10-3 team on national TV. Like, I think a lot of people were looking forward to that game. But once you know Luka's not playing, the Suns should look at that one as, okay, we're at home. We have the talent advantage. Let's just go win this game. Like, the fact that Chris Paul has 37 minutes in that game is pretty bad. And obviously, Cam Payne didn't play well as his backup. But you don't want to have that happen. They obviously got the job done when they needed to. But look, I mean, the Mavs, it's such a weird game. It's one of those games where you look back and you check the box score and you kind of have to look at it 2 or 3 times because you're like, I don't really know how either of these teams outside of Devin Booker, did anything. They all played badly is what it feels like. Obviously, it was just a physical game and it was very ref heavy moments. But yeah, I think that they eventually just kind of made the shots they needed to make, had 4 or 5 big threes in the last few minutes, and then Devin Booker just starts playing like a maniac and closes things down.
Weird game where it was ref heavy. Yes, I'll agree with that. But there was only 20 free throws total taken in the whole game. It was like, where are these fouls coming from? But there were a ton of weird fouls and stoppages and stuff in this game.
The rare game where I think both teams were pissed off at the officials by the end.
They were just
nobody got what they wanted.
The refs were like, we're right in the pocket, man. We're just hanging out right in that pocket. Both sides are mad at us. Chris Paul's getting upset, all that. All right, so
that's really what it was Chris Paul gets called for that. I think he got called for a technical, and from then it was like, it's over. You can't poke the bear like that. That was really what the Suns needed more than anything, and they got it.
Yeah, does Chris Paul need that motivation now? Does he just become a player where you're like, on any given night, he's like, I'm either going to skate through this game or I need something to just piss me off and just get me into this game?
I don't know about skating, but yeah, you could see at the beginning he wasn't taking shots. He was getting open threes, he was passing up. They were getting him looks. He just didn't want to take them. I think he's not going to do anything until the fourth quarter unless he really needs to, and maybe he didn't feel like he needed to.
Hey, he's what, top 5, top 3 in assists all time. He can do whatever he wants, right?
He's good.
He's earned the right now to just hang out until the end of the game, basically. Man, Devin Booker in this game, I thought also just had some incredible shot making. I was a little jealous. I was like, man, just to have a second best player on a team, or I don't know if you consider him the best player on the team, but to have a second best player that can hit shots like that must be nice. Must be.
It
Must be
is nice. I mean, at the very least, look, yeah, like two perimeter players who play off of each other so well. And you kind of saw that, right? Where Booker had that hot first quarter. I mean, most of his points, the majority of his points came in the first quarter. He's able to kind of, I mean, you might hope that he had done a little more in the second and third quarters to keep the game in hand a little bit more. But then he comes alive in the last few minutes, makes a big three to close things out, has that ridiculous layup. I wouldn't even say over Kristaps Porzingis, but around him, and
It was
kind
almost
of like
under, right? Like it was under
yes.
Porzingis, and you're like, how?
Yeah.
How did he get that off?
I think it was payback because Porzingis had that jumper just right over the top of Booker. So he's like, all right, you go over me. I'm going to go under you and we'll see what happens. But yeah, and then, CP makes basically just enough shots to keep the defense honest, get to the free throw line a little bit, has that dish underneath to Ayton. And that's really all that they needed. But look, KP played well too. I think he was, I mean, to me, I obviously, he was out for a few games and I haven't caught a lot of him, and he's more featured now with Luka out because he has to be, but he was impressive to me. I think it was a career high in assists, and they were kind of running stuff for him more often than I remember them doing all the time. And he just looked pretty fluid, which is not something I would always say about him. I don't know. Was that out of characteristic, or was that fairly normal for his season so far?
Yeah, no, the moving, the fluidity, all that, especially on the defensive end, has been way better this season. And that's sort of been the big difference for the Mavericks, is that they can play Kristaps Porzingis at the 5 and it be their best lineup. Whereas last year it was like, you're still hemorrhaging points at that point. You're still a really bad defense if Porzingis is your only big man out there. You're playing with some wings, and then like Tim Hardaway Jr. and Josh Richardson, who are not doing well. Richardson didn't do well on defense or anywhere last year at all. But if that's your lineup, then your defensive lineup is just really bad. And so this year it's been a little bit better on that end. But in the pick and roll and in like dribble handoffs and all that kind of stuff, that's where he got I think all of his assists came in dribble handoff situations. But those kind of actions have been incredible for the Mavericks this year. It's just the stuff they try to do at the end of the game, where they try to post up, they get the switch, and you're like, hey, you have a mismatch against Mikal Bridges. And I'm like, no, you do not. That is not a mismatch. Really. That one play where Bridges like goes kind of over the back, but it hits the ball. Neither of them left their feet, and they both had their arms extended as high as they could, and Bridges was right there with Porzingis because his arms are so long.
He's such a freak, and it's crazy. I mean, you talked about the kind of them hitting the shots that they needed to at the end. I mean, I think was literally had a donut heading into the fourth quarter, and then you probably came away from that game thinking, damn, he was probably like one of the 3 best guys on the floor tonight. It doesn't make any sense how he can flip that switch and he's able to make an impact without scoring the ball. I mean, Suns fans want him to probably score a little more than he has, but in this game, with how physical and weird it really was just some of those late plays. But yeah, I mean, look, if it's all in the dribble handoff, who cares? As long as he's using the gravity that he has and the attention that he's going to get, and he's able to pick out players and cutters and find shooters and all that. I mean, I was pretty impressed. I mean, it was probably the best 7 of 20 night that I can remember in a while. Like, I felt way better than that, didn't it?
Yeah, no, it did. He's just had some games more recently, like the last 3 games or so before this. Porzingis has been awesome. Like he had, a couple 30-point games. He's just had these nights where he's just finishing really well with Luka, obviously, and so it changes it. But yeah, his gravity is insane. He airballs a 3 really badly, and Ayton's the next play still is like way outside the paint, guarding him at the 3-point line. And you're like, dang, that guy has some respect. I want respect as a shooter the way that Porzingis has. It's like, I don't know if he's earned it, but he's definitely getting it. What do you expect in the game tonight? Because for me, the Mavericks aren't going to shoot 50% from 3 again. The Mavs have not shot well from 3 at all this season. I think they've only shot over 40%. This is now 4 games, I think, maybe 5 total that they've shot over 40% from 3. The rest of them have been just, I mean, god awful almost. But what do you think? What are you expecting in this game from the Suns?
Can they play small even more? Can Dallas play small even more? Because I think that's probably the thing that, with the way the Suns play, would be the most of a test. You just see like, yeah, they could probably switch, and that's the thing that teams always do against Porzingis. But making them really rotate and really move on defense is probably the best plan you're going to have. I mean, you're probably not going to get a Chris Paul game quite as poor as this one was from a shooting perspective. He'll probably come out wanting to kind of fix that stuff. But I would say if the Mavs can play a little bit smaller, and then if they can force the Suns into turnovers, that has been a big problem for the Suns this year. They only turned the ball over 7 times in this first game, which is incredible. So if they can force the Suns into some more mistakes, maybe pull their defense apart a little bit more, I think that's probably what you're looking at. If they can win the bench minutes, the Suns bench has not been very good. They were pretty solid in this past game. Reggie Bullock didn't really make shots. Maybe that changes, but look, Luka's doubtful, right? So it's gonna be an uphill climb. But I think anything's possible. I mean, these teams always have insane games, so I'm ready for anything.
Yeah, I don't expect Luka to play. And there's a lot of things to look forward to in this game tonight. So coming up, let's get into the Phoenix Suns. We'll talk about this team so far this season, what the big difference has been for the Suns so far this season. And we have to talk about those championship odds. We'll get into that coming up. But before we do, let me tell you about Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best NBA daily fantasy prop game on the market. They offer more NBA fantasy props than anyone else on the market. Any other daily fantasy prop operator, they offer the superstar players as well as the bench players. You can go ahead and go to prizepicks.com. You can sign in, you can get started, and you can pick over under for points in a game. Let's see, they got a couple that are starting tonight, so you won't be able to get these, but Jimmy Butler over under against the Washington Wizards, 20.5 points. So you can pick that one, and you can pick Bradley Beal over under 23.5 points. If I pick, let's say let me go over on Jimmy Butler. He's kind of on one right now. Bradley Beal, maybe he comes back after that really bad shooting night the other night. I put $20 down. I could win $40 if I bet on that right now. If I go ahead and put $100 down, I win $200 on that. So go and check out Prize Picks. You can put down some money. You can do NBA and NFL at the same time. They have all kinds of stuff at Prize Picks. So go check it out. Use the promo code NBA. And you will use the promo code NBA, and it will match your deposit up to $100. So you deposit $100, they give you $100 to use. Prize Picks, use the promo code NBA. All right, Brendon Kleen, let's get into the Suns. Let me ask you some questions about these Suns. So this season, what's been the big difference for you? I think the backup center role has kind of been the one thing that I've heard you talk about on the show that has been a difference. JaVale McGee was actually really good in the game the other night against the Mavs. He seems to be a definite, I guess, upgrade. And there have been times when Frank Kaminsky's had good nights, but Dario Saric has been out. Has that been the only big difference? Because the starting lineup is like just the same as it was last year.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that starting lineup was one of the best lineups by the end of the season in the entire NBA. They play together a ton. They were on the floor together to close every single playoff game for, 24 games in that postseason. So that's somewhat of a known commodity. And I guess there's one part of that I can get to in a second, but you're right. The biggest thing has been the bench. It's not only, having that backup center, and Dario Saric is still out. Remember, he tore his ACL and he is not even a part of the rotation, but they signed JaVale McGee in the offseason. They get Frank Kaminsky back, who's been playing as he always tends to do somehow, way better than anyone expects. So that's been a big sigh of relief, but also
I just think no one expects anything from Frank Kaminsky. So if he does anything, it's already over expectation.
It really is, but the entire NBA seems to just not value him, which is kind of crazy. Maybe that changes finally this year, but the dude's on the floor in a game 6 of a finals, and teams are like, no, we're not, we're not messing with that anyway. But no, I mean, it's also just that they added Landry Shamet, who they traded for on draft night and then extended. They're integrating Abdul Nader, who has been respectfully a disaster. So that's been kind of bad.
I don't know if that can be respectful.
Respectfully, yeah. I don't know if you can call it respectfully a disaster. But it's just been fun to kind of see how that bench works. And I think it has the potential to be really good. I think there's some players on that second unit who we might see close games in the playoffs if they can figure out some lineups that work. And also, the departure of Torrey Craig has been weirdly important. It's a player who I'm sure people remember from the finals and everything. He played a pretty big role, but I just thought, he's not that irreplaceable, but he's been awesome in Indiana on defense, and they've really missed that size. So, when you're a finals contender, the problems can sound very small, and I'm sure that's how it comes off saying that right now. But it really is a lot about who that second unit, who plays, what it looks like, can they coalesce, can they find some new pieces, and it's been fun to watch so far.
What's the next step for the Suns team? Where do you think do they have another step to go? Are they just the team that they were going in the finals? That's the best that this team can be, or is there a step Ayton can take? Is it shooting for Ayton? Is it another step for Devin Booker as a playmaker or something? What's the next step, do you think, for this team? Let's say they take another step forward. What is it?
Yeah, you certainly hope it's not the same that it was because, I don't love when we talk about the lucky path that the Suns got, but the reality is like they are likely to not face a bunch of injured teams again, and you got to be better. And they already lost to the Bucks in the finals, so they clearly weren't good enough there. You need to be better than you were last year. I mean, the number one place that I kind of have started to go is what does Devin Booker look like? Because the NBA is decided by great players being great, and if he can't find new ways to, poke holes in defenses or help his teammates be better, then I think the Suns are going to be largely in the same place they were last year. A lot of the other stuff that Suns fans are looking for, I mean, the shooting from DeAndre Ayton is one thing. I'm kind of out on that really ever being a big part of his game. Maybe
in what
later
way?
on down the road.
A 3-point as a 3-point shooter,
Yeah.
or just as a jump shooter at an 8-point?
Well, a 3-point shooter, absolutely. It's just not probably going to happen. A shooter from mid-range, he actually does too much. I mean, I think the real thing is, can he get a little bit more comfortable dribbling inside the arc, attacking the basket, getting to the free throw line? Just not anything complicated. He doesn't need to be Nikola Jokic out there, but I think we just want to see him be able to, this Mavs game was a perfect example. How many little baby hooks and fades did he miss in that first half because he just wasn't absorbing contact? And it's not exactly like Boban was out there, right? I mean, the Mavs are guys he should be able to take advantage of. He's bigger than them, and he just doesn't do it.
Even if Boban was out there, I feel like
it's fair.
Boban
it's fair. I mean,
you can slip by Boban like pretty easily, I think.
Well, I don't even think, but to be fair, like I don't think Ayton actually could. He's not really a slip by type of player because he can't really handle the ball like that. So that's what I think the next, maybe more reasonable step is. Like Booker might get 5% better this season, but Ayton and Bridges together have the potential to get, 20, 25% better, really take somewhat of a leap. And we haven't really seen that so far, but Ayton did miss some time, so we'll see. And I think that's where Suns fans are looking. If those guys can be a little bit more reliable as third and fourth options, maybe you don't have to rely on Booker and Paul. Maybe those guys don't get hurt like they both did last postseason.
Let's go ahead and look at these odds from BetOnline. So we tweeted them out today. If you want to go at Locked On Network, go ahead and follow that account. They just updated these today, Thursday, November 18th, as we're recording this. Brooklyn Nets plus 275. They are the overall favorite to win the title. They didn't get scared off from the beatdown that the Warriors gave of the Brooklyn Nets. They stayed with Brooklyn as the leader to win the finals. Then the Warriors plus 575 after that. Lakers plus 700, Jazz plus 800, Bucks plus 900, Miami Heat plus 1200, and then the Phoenix Suns plus 1400, all the way down there. Like their odds are they have basically like this. The Lakers are basically twice as likely to win the title as the Suns are right now. And okay, I understand how, betting works and things like that. The Lakers are just always going to have inflated odds on anything. They're always going to be a little bit higher than everybody else because money comes in for those teams. So they're just going to put them up there. So they're on the graphics. So they're on the, the first page of the board and all that kind of stuff. We understand that. But to have it that much higher than the Suns means that the Bucks seem to have the Lakers as a better team, like a team that's more likely to win the finals. Like that seems ridiculous to me.
That one is obviously the one that jumps out. I mean, I think that team is 500 right now. They have done nothing to make people feel good about them really at all. LeBron is now in his third or fourth straight season where he's missing considerable amount of time with injury. So I'm not really sure what a bettor would look at the Lakers and want to invest their money on them. I personally would not give my hard-earned cash to anybody to say that the Lakers are going to be great this season. The one that jumps out to me, though, is the Jazz. Because, you look, the Nets haven't necessarily been in the finals, but a lot of their KD has, Kyrie has, Harden has been very close. The Warriors, the Lakers, the Bucks, the Heat, these are all teams in the past 2 or 3 seasons who we've seen compete for titles. But what in the world are the Jazz doing up there? They have not even made a finals. The Suns just did that, and the Jazz are 2 or 3 spots higher than the Suns. And the Jazz are not a sexy name that you would want to put up there if you're BetOnline just to juice up some betting. So that seems to me that people genuinely think of them that way. And I have no idea what has happened that would make anybody like super excited. They're not even very sexy this year. They didn't do anything different. Like they didn't add a bunch of talent. I don't get that one at all.
You're not a fan of the Rudy Gay, Hassan Whiteside bench that they added to this team?
Can't say that I am. I mean, I think if I didn't bore people to sleep talking about Landry Shamet, then I think Rudy Gay is the logical next place to go. Like they just similar to the Suns. They're kind of just hoping that what they have works, but it hasn't worked so far. So yeah, it's been a weird thing I've been talking about on this show all off season and then into the season is like the Suns are just hanging out down around the middle of these kind of championship tier. I'm sure they're thrilled. Like they don't need the pressure. They don't need the scrutiny any more than they've already had it for off court stuff. So I don't know, but I hope that they rise. Like we were talking about before we hit record, like literally they have won 10 straight games. What else could they possibly be doing to prove to people that they're a good team?
That it didn't like, it wasn't just that their odds were lower than the Lakers and Jazz. It was that they were so much lower than these other teams.
Yeah,
it doesn't make any sense to me.
Like you said, like half as likely by BetOnline's odds to make the finals or to win the championship compared to the Lakers and the Jazz. They're closer to the Nuggets than they are, which I think the Nuggets are pretty good, but they're closer to an injured team than they are to the top tier of the league.
Yeah, they're closer to the Clippers, who have the same odds as the Nuggets, and then the 76ers have they're closer to the 76ers than the Suns are to the Lakers.
We got to talk
make
to
it make sense. Make it make sense. I don't understand. All right, coming up, let's talk about the Dallas Mavericks. We're going to get into it. Luka Doncic out, but what is this team? I'm sure you have lots of questions about Jason Kidd, as do I. We'll get into all that coming up. But before we do, let me tell you quickly about Built Bar. It's a protein bar that tastes like a candy bar. They're absolutely delicious. And right now, you can go get the best flavor that exists right now. This coconut brownie chunk. It's available again right now. I ate one today. It's not here anymore because I ate it. It's gone. But 150 calories, 15 grams of protein, 7 grams of sugar. You can get it in a bar that has actual brownie chunks in it, which is the thing that they add that makes this bar different than any other, but still only 7 grams of sugar. They give you just the little taste. Instead of like a whole ass brownie, they give you just like the little bits on the top in a protein bar. It's great for a snack. It's great to tide you over between meals. They're absolutely great. Use the promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off at built.com on anything. They have vanilla cream as a new flavor right now, coconut almond, peanut butter brownie. The protein balls are back. So if you are gluten-free, dairy-free, grain-free, you can go ahead and get those too. You can go and check those out at built.com. Promo code LOCKED15. All right, Brendon Kleen, let's get into it. Let's get into the Dallas Mavericks. I asked you about the Suns. Now, hit me with your Mavs questions. And you're not allowed to ask anything about Jason Kidd because I don't know the answer.
You don't have any answers for me. Okay, what I really want to know, and this is a weird place to start, is okay. I'll ask him a specific question, and then I'll make it into a bigger question because I don't want to spend too much time on this player. But why do Mavs fans just like absolutely hate Willie Cauley-Stein?
You didn't watch him in that last game? Because man, that last game was just a complete. It represented everything that Willie Cauley-Stein has been this season, where he just came out.
I love the box score
and was just a body and didn't do it. Yeah, his box score: 8 minutes, 8.5 minutes played, a -8. He scored. He fouled, had a turnover, 1 rebound. That was it. 1 shot attempt that he missed, which is a layup that he missed. It didn't look like he showed up. And so anytime he goes out there, he just doesn't do anything. And then what makes it even worse, oh my God, I'm going to try to use this word again. My comment section has been obsessed with me using this word. It's going to exasperate. What exasperates this whole exacerbate? Is that what I'm trying to say?
Yes. You got it.
The comment section is always like, no, you used it wrong. And then somebody else will say you used it wrong again. And then also exacerbate. It exasperates the situation that Moses Brown is sitting there. And Moses Brown is this young, exciting player that's had 2020 games. And anytime Moses Brown goes out there, he tries hard and he hustles and all that kind of stuff. And so it just, the optics of it looks so bad for Willie Cauley-Stein right now. And he's only playing 8 or 10 minutes a game, but it just like people just get consumed. And Mavs fans are used to getting mad at the center spot. The Mavs have the best center in Mavs history. He played for the Suns, but he played 2 non-consecutive years for the Mavericks. The rest of the history has been just spotty center play for the entire time. And so they're used to like JaVale McGee being the starting center, Eric Dampier being the starting center, just a whole bunch of the slew of guys filling in. Dwight Powell now being the starting center for like 4 years, it seems like. And so it's part of the culture, I guess, now is to be mad at the backup
It's
center.
just, yeah, it's like the Mavs fan for life, and then it's just hating backup centers,
Yes.
hating starting centers.
Yes.
Those are like the two cruxes of Mavs fandom. No, I'm glad that I asked that because I knew it would get you riled up, and it did exactly what I wanted. Did you remember actually that our first podcast ever together, I tried to convince you that Tyson Chandler would make the Hall of Fame?
Wow. I don't remember that, but should he?
No, I don't think he should. I think you were right. You told me that he shouldn't, and I think that's probably correct. But I love Tyson Chandler, so I guess we can.
Oh, we do too.
We can bond over that. Yeah, that's that's one thing we can.
Speaking of Tyson Chandler, there was all these pictures and images and video of Tyson Chandler working with Moses Brown during the offseason and like working on stuff with him. And when we talked to Moses Brown on media day, we sat down with him, did a one-on-one, and he was like, tell us what Tyson Chandler like taught you. And he started going through all this stuff, and he was getting really excited. And then that's sort of what got all Mavs fans excited about Moses Brown. I was like, oh, Tyson's gonna teach him how to be blah blah blah. And yeah, we just haven't seen it yet.
He was NBA Twitter's favorite player, I think, in the world last year. But the segue that I wanted to do from that, and the Willie Cauley-Stein thing is sort of like a part of it, is what is the thinking with the Mavs basically keeping the same core together? Was that just something that they kind of had to do because there wasn't a ton available? I know that there was like Kyle Lowry rumors and people still maybe want Goran Dragic. I don't know, but they didn't make a huge move. Like, I'm coming from the Devin Booker experience where far less stable franchise, but still there was from year 2 on, there was when is he going to ask out? The pressure's on. He needs to win, being asked about this and that all the time. I know Luka just signed an extension, so we're nowhere in that realm at all, but they still just kind of kept things together after 2 straight playoff losses. Why did they do that, and has it worked?
Has it worked? So far, it hasn't seemed to work. There's a bunch of different issues, right? Like there was okay, we can convince ourselves that those losses against the Clippers were so close against a team that was so good that we're right on the precipice. If we have just a little bit better of a regular season, maybe we don't play a team as good as the Clippers anymore, and then where our path to the finals is easier, like the Suns was so easy. No, I'm just messing. And then they get to the finals, right? Like maybe they go on a run like that. So you talk yourself into it that way. Then, I mean, the Mavericks didn't have like draft picks to trade because the Porzingis trade messed it all up, right? You have those draft picks, and you trade 2 draft picks for a player, and then all of a sudden you can't trade draft picks for like 5 years almost because you can't trade consecutive picks and all that. And so there's the amount of moves the Mavericks could make were limited, and then they really wanted to bring back Tim Hardaway Jr., and so a lot of that cap space was taken up by him because he had a $28 million cap hold. And so they're like, all right, either we have to sign him to this deal or we hold on to this cap hold, and then we just don't have any cap space anyway. And so they re-signed him. And then the Kristaps Porzingis situation, his value seemed to be so low at the end of last season that there's just no reason for them to trade him at that point because they just wouldn't get anything, right? Maybe they just get off of the deal, and then all of a sudden that's $30 million off, and they send a future pick to the Thunder or something, right? And then all of a sudden, and do it that way. But
and then you have even fewer picks, and you're worsening that problem. Yeah,
you have fewer picks, you have no talent, you have nothing to show for that Porzingis deal that they tried, and so then there's that situation, and then. The big move they did make was the front office and the coach. There was, at the end of last season, there was 3 things that we were like, all right, there's 3 players right now in Porzingis, I just flipped you off, Porzingis, in Rick Carlisle and Donnie Nelson. And
you were flipping Porzingis off. You said it right when you said Porzingis, so we'll go with that.
And Isaac and I were like, all right, they're not going to keep all 3 of these guys. I should be doing the German 3. Maybe that's better. They're not going to keep all 3 of these guys. But what happened was they fired Donnie Nelson. Rick Carlisle was, quote unquote, left on his own terms. And then they kept Porzingis. So we're like, okay, that was the move that they make. So they overhauled the front office and the coaching staff that hadn't been changed in. I mean, Donnie Nelson been there for 20 years, Rick Carlisle 13. So that was the big move they made. They and the whole offseason, they kept telling us, well, it's going to change because of culture and chemistry. Culture and chemistry is going to be so much better this season. That's where we're going to improve. And Porzingis, oh my gosh, I haven't done this in weeks. His first healthy offseason in a long time.
Is that a drinking game?
It's a drinking game. Every single time we say that Porzingis is first healthy offseason in a long time, you have to take a drink. But that was the reason why they didn't make any big moves, whether it was right or justified or not.
That makes sense. It does. It makes sense. I I think like it honestly what it is, I think is like our NBA fan brain are all so broken where when a team with a superstar just sort of like runs it back, we're just like, we're like the Kevin in Home Alone. Like we're like, what are you doing? Like so that was I mean that's it all is sound reasoning, and they were pretty good the past 2 years. It's not like if this is an awful team that's just like running into a glass window trying to get out over and over. But
comparing
the question
the Mavs front office to the Wet Bandits, doing the exact same thing over and over again and expecting different results.
Yes.
That's a pretty
Who's
good
Kevin
analogy.
then? Is it Luka?
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
or us
in that metaphor.
Yeah.
Yeah. My last question is, Tim Hardaway is the what best player in the NBA? I think he's perpetually underrated, and he was incredible in the playoffs, and I absolutely love watching him. He was not awesome on Wednesday night, but he's the what best player in the league.
I'm gonna insert a word into your sentence. Tim Hardaway Jr. is either on any given night like a top 50 player or like a bottom 50 player, right? Because he just gets hot some nights, and when he gets hot and he hits like 5 threes in a game, the Mavericks can't lose. It's one of these things if Luka's playing, obviously. But if he gets hot and hits threes, then it's a different ball game for the Mavericks. It opens up so much stuff. It adds, more pressure on the defense in a bunch of different ways. He can hit those shots where he kind of dribble handoffs, or he just pump fakes and steps in and hits a long 2. He can do a lot of things. But if his jumper is not going, he's not a guy driving to the basket and doing a lot of stuff like that. He's not that good of a passer. He's obviously not that good of a defender, which was something we were confused about at the end of the game, where they had Tim Hardaway just like, you shadow Booker. The end of the game, you just shadow Booker the entire time. We're like, why is that with Bullock and Dorian Finney-Smith out there? Why is that the game plan? But so he's not that good of a defender either. But when he's hot and he's on, man, he gets flaming hot.
He does. He didn't do it, but we're talking about what could happen in this Friday night game. I think him getting a little bit hotter, having a little bit of a better night, that's obviously one of the big things you would hope for if you're a Mavs fan trying to get this upset. But you want to do predictions and then get out of here? Or how do you want to wrap this up?
Predictions. Not something we do on Locked On Mavs a lot, but
I don't really do them either. But I don't know. What do we do on a crossover? How do we settle our scores here? How do we decide who's the bigger, better man before we wrap up our show? Isn't that what this is for? No.
No, just put them on the table.
I thought it was just mano a mano, and one of us was going to go home crying. I thought that's what.
Well, I think I talked longer on this one, so if we're going with word count, I think maybe I take it.
Okay.
But the Mavs won't shoot 50% from 3, and so if the Mavs if they don't, then I think it's kind of a blowout in the Suns' favor. Maybe I'm reverse jinxing them, but I think that's where it goes tonight.
Here's what I'm hoping for is a fairly not memorable game, because I have family in town, so I will not be attending this game.
And I
get really bummed out when I miss good games, so I want it to be a bad game. That's my hope. You heard it here first.
All right, for everybody else, I hope it's a good game. You go subscribe to Locked On Suns. Follow Brendon Kleen on Twitter. He's a great follow. Really smart guy covering the NBA. You just heard him for 30 minutes, so you should know. But go check that out. Also, Locked On Mavs. Subscribe on YouTube. Guys, thanks so much for listening to Locked On Mavs and Locked On Suns. Peace out. Boom.